Open Gym Live, powered by Get Better Hoops. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. Extremely excited for this episode. Before I get that started, I want to thank everyone for all their feedback and comments and likes, and everybody's been doing for our show. Very, very appreciative. And with this guest that we have on now, I've known him since we were kids. He's basically like a little brother. He's the same age as my brother. He is the founder and CEO of Breaking Barriers United. He is a police officer for the Chino Police Department. He is a humanitarian, a consultant, a mentor, coach. He is an author of Happy Eyes, Becoming All Things to People. And he is IE's own Corporal Ryan Tillman.
My man.
Appreciate you coming through, man.
Hey, man. You are literally like a big bro. Seriously. I was excited to come here, man. You know, you get those home, like those, you step into some places and the nostalgia of places just makes you feel like old school home. Yeah. Like that's that feeling I had when I knew I was coming on the podcast. I was like, man, this is family.
Yeah. I mean, I was told by my dad a long time ago when you got on with, UNLV, the football team, and I saw you on TV, but at that time I was already done with playing at Sac State.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I had no clue you even played football because, once we moved from the IE, you were doing your thing on the football field and you ran track, that I heard. And I do want to also point out your dad, because your dad, Earl Tillman, may he rest in peace, he was impactful for me at a young age, because when I went to Rialto High School, he was always there. He was always on campus. He was always very helpful, very knowledgeable, especially being a black man and being well educated. He made an impact on me. I don't think you ever heard that from me, because he helped me out through some trials and tribulations when I was at Rialto, because believe it or not, I got jumped one time at Rialto on some dumb stuff. Dudes was mad over a girl that I didn't even care about, and I just got sucker punched from the back.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And he's the one that basically brought me into his office, and I stayed there in his office the whole day, and we just talked about life and how I should go about after that, and me staying focused on basketball and talking about my dad, but getting into how we know each other. Our moms worked together for Bank of America. They worked out a branch in Altaloma and became good friends. They carpooled, once they got to know each other, and also transitioned to Brea to another their corporate office in Bank of America. And then that's how I met, you, your sisters, Lauren, and Aaron, and then my dad and your dad started working together. And your dad hooked my dad up with a job at Rialto.
Man, it's crazy, man. Going back to that like, it seems like yesterday, and my dad truly made. And when I hear stories like that, it makes me just proud to be his son. Yeah. Like that man was my hero. I always tell people I'm a spitting image of my dad. My mom and dad, or my mom and my sisters call me Earl Tillman Jr. because, Jr. Because they say like, I'm a spitting image of him. So when I hear stories like that, it just makes me proud, man, because like my dad literally impacted people's lives. And then, like you said, when our mom started working together, I remember it like yesterday. I still remember what y'all house looked like. I remember the basketball court that y'all had up in the front yard. I remember going over there playing the video games. And like we said before we got on the episode today, I had the vivid memories of the WWF the pillows, bro, the Hulk Hogan and Macho Man.
Puffy, fluffy figurines of Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, but that just tells you, man, like we had good relationships growing up. Like there's not a lot of vivid memories that I have like that, but those are some vivid memories for sure.
Yeah, because obviously life happened. Like I said, we moved to Sacramento, and then I saw you grow from afar. And definitely proud, of you.
I appreciate that, brother.
You consider me as a, big
brother for sure.
And beautiful family. You got wife and
He had
how
three
many kids?
kids.
Three
Three.
kids.
Yep. We got my wife Kimberly, and then we got Grayson. He's 10. Gavin is 7. He'll be 8 next month, and then Rylan is 5. So we're
Nice.
busy.
Nice. So once we separated, as far as me moving to Sacramento, I started playing AAU basketball. My dad was really honing in on me and making sure I was, concentrating on my craft and going from LA to the IE. I definitely know about the grind of playing a sport. So with that being said, what was your first sport? What was, what drove you with that first sport?
Yeah, so my first sport, I mean, my dad and mom had me in all the sports when I was younger. They had me in t-ball. They even had me in tennis. My dad introduced me to golf at I was 8 years old. And I'm an avid golfer now, But his philosophy was he always wanted to introduce me, and then whatever it is I want to do, I can do it. If not, he'll take me out of it. But then I remember growing up, and my oldest cousin, Derek, he played football at UCLA at the time. And I remember just like going and watching his games, and I was like, man, like that looks fun. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, can you put me into football? And that was when I was about 8 years old, and contact football. And back then they didn't even have the flag football like they do.
No.
Like it was contact or nothing. So like I don't even.
Not a thing.
No, it was not even a thing. So he put me in flag football. I mean, not flag. He put me in tackle football for the Rialto Dolphins. And I never forget, my first coach was Coach Lopez. And that was the first culture shock I ever had of sports, because, football was different than other sports, because like football, they didn't care, bro. Like they was out there yelling at you, dogging you out. I'm 8 years old here thinking like cussing me out, bro. And I remember coming home after that first practice, like, I don't know if I could do this. And it was hell. And like back in, Hell Week was like a legitimate Hell Week. It wasn't like the soft stuff now. Like, it was Hell Week.
Yeah.
And we 8 years old, and they was like running us and doing all this other stuff. But I kept coming back. And then once I started playing, I just fell in love with the game, which is funny because like I played baseball at the time, and the coaches in baseball, my dad in baseball, everybody was like, Ryan, you're a natural baseball player. But after they introduced me to football, it was hard to play baseball because I was so used to the fast pace, the contact. Right. But looking back, I was more of a natural baseball player, which is funny because my oldest son, Grayson, he's a natural baseball player. Dude just got a natural arm.
Really?
And so, I think, I don't know if genetically or what, but, baseball I was natural at that, but I stuck to football. Football is what got me to the next level.
So with you pursuing the game of football, you just, elaborated on the contact and the fast pace. But we always talk about in the sports community, either you like it or you love it. And what drove you to like really love and continue to play, football to get to a high level?
I just love the athletic, or I just love the mindset of being an athlete. Like, I don't know what it was, but I always felt like as an athlete, I was just made and built differently. Like I was just competitive on every nature. I mean, me and my boys, we have a contest on who could tie their shoes the fastest, who could run the fast. Everything was competition for me. And if you lost, I was like, no, I'm not losing again. Like, so, somebody asked the question the other day, like, they asked me the question, do you love winning or hate losing? And I said, I hate losing. Like, don't get me wrong, I love winning, but I hate losing more.
Yeah, because you definitely learn more from losing than
Correct.
winning.
Correct. And I hate the feeling of losing. So I think that's what drove me in sports. But, you take that over in my life now. And I've always looked at myself as the underdog. When I was in high school, I was always the smaller guy. I wasn't the fastest. But sports was one of those things that you can, if you work hard, you can literally start transforming your body and accomplishing things that nobody can do.
Right.
So I adopted mentality early on, like being the first in the gym, the last one out. I adopted the mentality of eating more and bulking up. I adopted the mentality of keeping my grades up because I knew that those were controllables.
Right.
You know, in life, there's always controllables and uncontrollables. The uncontrollable things is like, hey, you know what? You just got to live and adapt, and whatever is going to come your way, it is what it is. Yeah. But there's a lot of controllables that people don't control.
Yeah.
So I knew, at least with sports, if I can control these things, being the first one in, last one off, eating, bulking up, then everything else will handle itself. And that's when, like, my life started to transform. Like, I started to get big. I started to get fast. I remember when I really bought in, I remember going from running, I think my first 40 I ever ran was like a 5'1" or 5'2". Like, this was like freshman year of high school, dog. And I'm thinking like, dang, 5'1", 5'2". Like, I thought I was moving. It felt like I was moving. And they got that
a glue truck behind you.
I'm telling you. And then I remember, like, again, going back to the controllables, when I bought in, I remember the first time I ever hit 4.5.
Wow.
And people were like, bro, you moving.
Yeah.
But that's because I was able to control what I can control and let everything else take care of itself.
Nice. I know with, excuse me, that once you feel like, you know, you get to a certain, especially high school, because you try to earn your respect amongst your peers and the competition, and, you know, you're battling with each other against opponents or whatever. And with all that, and you knowing that you belonged, especially you get on varsity in high school, were you getting recruited at some point, you know, during your junior or senior year?
No. So my road to college athletic was not the one that's most traveled. In high school, at our high school, it's crazy, man. So on my senior team, we had 9 guys end up going to play Division I college football.
Wow.
But the reason that's so significant is because my junior year, we didn't win a game. We went 0-10. Then my senior year, I think we won 2 or 3 games. So the question is how do you have 9 guys go play Division I college football and you guys didn't win any games? Well, we had 5 different head coaches in 4 years of our team. So we had athletes galore, but we went to a school where you had guys, like, there was a lot of distractions. We had guys get arrested for armed robbery. We had guys that were on probation. We had guys that came from toxic homes. But we had talent. My freshman team, we went undefeated. We had 6 consecutive shutouts, bro. We were beating the brakes off people. I still remember the scores we were putting up: 48-0, 54-0. We didn't give up our first touchdown until 6 games into the year, and then we gave up one. It was like, bro, our whole world came down when we gave up 1 touchdown in the game. We ended up winning the game like 30-6. But that's the mentality we had. We didn't want to give up. We played a game. Never forget this. We played Redlands East Valley as freshmen, bro, and we didn't give up a first down. Like, we were vicious.
Locked in.
Oh, we were locked in. And so that was the mentality. But then as we got older, distractions come in, all these different crazy things. And then you have above us, you have coaches going through transitions. We basically start falling off. So I say all that to say is, like, I didn't get the traditional recruiting experience because we weren't winning games. So because we weren't winning games, we didn't have all the recruits coming out to our practices. Right. We didn't have people showing up. And so my dad was ahead of his time. My dad was like, you know, he was like a marketer. And that's why I say I'm just an extension of who my dad was. He would have me, like, he created this pamphlet, this brochure. I got to find it. It's probably in my mom's stash somewhere. But, like, it was a pamphlet, like a little 3-fold of who I am, my grade point average, this, and that. Oh, yeah. He was making the highlight tapes, and that's when you had to send him out.
He was your recruiter.
He was my recruiter. Yeah. And so I tried to go through the whole thing. We still didn't have nothing. And then my senior year comes, didn't have anybody that was recruiting me. And I have to bring this up because I remember going into my senior year, Coach Japs, at the time he was a cross-country coach at Rialto. And he was like, you need to run track. And I was like, nah, I think I'm going to take track off this year. He was like, no, you need to run track. And he was like, I was like, nah, I'm going to focus on football. He was like, well, Ryan, you know you're not going to play football in college. Because at the time I was small. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time, dog, somebody ever made me cry because they told me I couldn't do what I wanted to do. They were like, nah, you're not going to be able to do that. He was like, you're too small. He was like, well, if you want to play football, you can go to a college called Ithaca. Now, let me ask you, have you ever heard of Ithaca? Maybe you have. But most people have never heard of Ithaca. Yeah. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, nah, USC, UCLA, like, you going to give me Ithaca, dog? Yeah. Like, so I was hurt, bro. Like, I came home crying to my dad. Like, I can't believe he told me that. And that actually lit a fire underneath me. I was like, man. So we talk about that first one in the gym, last one out. Like, that's when the fire really started going. And so I started eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, drinking protein shakes. I was like, I'm bulk up. And so my senior year comes. I don't get the looks that we want. I was starting quarterback, but we weren't doing that well. And this guy, Coach Barber, comes at springtime. Now I was already slated to go to Fresno State, just academically. But my plan was I'm gonna go to Fresno State. I'm gonna do the academics, but I'm gonna try out for the football team. So I already have my dorms. Everything was good to go. And then springtime comes around. This guy, Coach Barber, comes. They had already given out all the scholarships, but UNLV was still looking to fill some walk-on spots. So he comes, and I still remember what I was wearing that day. I was wearing a blue Mighty Mouse shirt, cut off sleeves. So my coaches pulled me out of class, like, hey, we got a scout here from UNLV. Come talk to him. So I'm like, all right, bet. So I do some push-ups, bro, try to get the veins, the blood flow going in my arms. You know how it was, dog.
You're trying to pump up real quick.
Yeah. And now I'm like still looking skinny as ever, but I go in there, and they were like talking to us. And so they were like, hey, we like you. We like you guys a lot. But we're kind of behind, so unless you've already applied for the spot, then I don't know if we're going to be able to give you this walk-on. It was called a preferred walk-on. But luckily, if you rewind like 3 or 4 months before that, when I was putting out college applications, I put it out to Fresno State, San Diego State, I think UCR or something else. And my dad was tired. You know how you got to put it was like a fee, like $50 for application fee.
Application fee.
And so, money don't grow on trees. Right. So my dad was like, no, you're not about to just be wasting money for... Because I had asked, I was like, Dad, can I apply at UNLV? He was like, no, why? You ain't even brought up UNLV. Yeah. Where you want to? Right. So I was like, Dad, I don't know. I just want to apply. So, you do what all sons do when your back is up against the wall. Your dad tells you no. Yeah. You go to Mom. Right. So I went to Mom. I was like, hey, Mom.
The best outlet ever.
Yeah, the best outlet ever. I said, Mom, I want to do this. So my mom was like, do it. I'll take care of your dad. Yeah. So I applied, and luckily I had applied. Because if I hadn't applied, I had got accepted. And because I got accepted, when Coach Barber found out that I was already accepted into the school, they were like, boom.
Oh, so it was
you're good to go. Hey, we'll get you in. You already did your clearinghouse. And so next thing I know, I found out that I was going to UNLV a day before I was slated to drive out to Fresno State.
That's
crazy, bro.
Because I did my research on you, especially with this being a sports-driven podcast. And this guy was a walk-on, and I can definitely relate to that because I was a walk-on. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't.
I walked on at Sac State because after we moved from the IE, when I came back, because I went to junior college at DVC in Walnut Creek up north. Didn't work out. Came back, went to Mount Sac. The coach there, he didn't have any plug on, any schools or whatever. So that's when my dad got the job promotion to go to Sacramento for Panasonic. And so I basically had to follow suit. I'm like 19 years old.
Yeah, I mean, about to be by myself.
Right. And plus, I had already been up north, and I wasn't really feeling, going up there.
Yeah.
So get up there, and the coach at the time he got the interim job. He recruited my high school teammate, Gary Holmes, and he ended up when he was at Eastern Washington. Then he gets to Sac State, and I was already getting recruited by Sac State in high school, but they didn't give me no offers. And a lot of schools would give me like partials, or I was like, I'm better than that.
Yeah, I'm better than I'm full ride.
Right. So like I said, I went to junior college, right? But when Coach Jenkins asked me he was like, you might as well just come walk on. And I was like, cool. So once I walked on, I was so juiced to just get a jersey.
Yeah, opportunity.
To get an opportunity. The jersey that I got, number 10, my walk-on year, it had no name. I was the only player on the team that had no name on the back of my jersey.
I can relate.
It pissed me off, which catapulted me to the career that I had at Sac State. But I can definitely tip my hat off to someone that went through the walk-on experience because it's a grind.
Bro, it is a grind, especially, and I think one of the worst parts about the walk-on experience for me was, it was a great, looking back in retrospect, probably one of the greatest experiences made me who I am today. Mm-hmm. But one of the worst things is like, you're on a team and you know that you have the capacity to be a scholarship player on a team where you have 80 other players that are on full scholarship, and some of them are worse than you.
Yeah, yeah.
But because of who their dad was,
Politics.
because of the politics of it, it's like, dog, this dude's on scholarship, but I'm better than this cat.
Right.
And then that's not even contributing to the fact of where you also have, if a coach recruited you, they're more apt to try to get you to play because they recruited you, so they want to look good. And so you have guys playing in front of you that shouldn't be playing in front of you. The only reason they are is because the coach recruited them. Yeah. And so, but you know what? All that to say is like, it put a chip on my shoulder. And I went to college with my best friend. He ended up being the best man at my wedding. Two of the guys, actually. Nice. We all walked on together from Rialto, and we all got put on scholarship together and full scholarship. And that was probably one of the best moments of my life, bro.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did that?
Bro, like I still remember it, man. Like we finished. It was a hot workout. It was in the summer in Vegas, bro. 116 degrees. You grinding, and as a walk on, bro, like you don't get the stipends. You still doing everything else. So
out of pocket.
So I was working a job, like all these other things, and I was just thinking like, man,
student loans.
Yeah, he had student loans, and I'm just thinking like, man, this is a grind. And I'll never forget, like after practice, Coach Sanford called everybody together, and he's like, hey, we got some good news today, fellas. He's like, we're going to be putting some guys on full scholarship today. And it was me, my buddy Markel Martin, Ryan, can't remember Ryan's last name, but there's another guy. It was like 4 of us. And, bro, I remember that call home that I made to my mom and dad, bro. Boy. Like, hey, like, you don't have to pay for my education no more. And my mom and dad made me a deal. They were like, hey, if you get a full scholarship, we'll buy you a car. So you better believe. I was like, hey, let me know when I should start car shopping. Hey, where the keys at, dog? I'm car shopping, and sure enough, they ended up giving me a G35 coupe, man. Dope. And that was like, man, I rolled, put some dubs on that thing, bro. I was the hottest thing out,
especially
bro.
In Vegas.
Oh, in Vegas, bro, you couldn't tell me nothing, bro.
Shit, I was reading on your bio on UNLV's website now, and because 2006, you basically got a spot on the special teams. And, in every sports, team sports, that is, everyone has a role. And special teams, is 11 guys, and you have a role within those 11 guys, the game. So I know there are trials and tribulations within your college years, and you competing, you're prioritizing your education and your, off the field life as well. Can you speak to how you manage the challenges and prioritizing your time, with trying to keep your studies right?
Yeah. I just wanted a spot, man. And I knew that I was going to have to be bigger, better, faster, stronger than everybody else. And I also knew that I was going to have to keep my grades up. I couldn't give the coaches any reason to keep me off the field. Like if you have a scholarship guy, there's a little bit more lenience because it's like, hey, you're on scholarship. So they had a little bit more lenience to mess up because they were invested into them. They weren't invested into me. It could have been easy for them to say, hey, you know what, you didn't work out. We're going to go with the next guy. And I've seen that. I saw it happen all 4 years. So I couldn't give these guys a reason to get me off the field or off the team. And you got to realize, and you mentioned it earlier, like when I first got to UNLV, UNLV is a Division I college program. And I remember prior to that moment, I remember watching some of the games like Colorado State and like seeing teams on TV. So when I got there and I got to the locker room and I'm seeing the helmets and like the whole experience, I'm like, wow, like, bro, this is what so many people live their life for, and I'm here.
And you're a small percentage
of
people that even get that opportunity.
Very, very small. And I never forgot that, and I never undervalued that or underestimated that. And I remember going to my locker. And, usually your locker number was the locker that your number is. So if you were number 29, your locker was number 29. Right. Well, as a walk-on, you don't have that. My locker was 112. 112.
Peaches and cream.
Yeah. My locker was 112. My bag was 112. My shirt number was 112. So it's kind of like crazy. You talk about like discrimination, or not discrimination, but it's almost like
you feel disrespected.
Yeah, because everybody else is like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm walking around with a shirt on 112. So you're a walk on. People know you're a walk on, and but you know what? I never allowed that to hold me back. If anything, it pushed me forward because I wanted to make you look bad because I'm a walk on. Right. Like, I'm going to walk on. So I'm going to go out here on this field.
Because it's going to look bad on them.
Because the walk on is making you look bad.
Right.
And so I remember going out there. And so again, going back to me, my stature wasn't, I remember when I checked in, I was like 142 pounds. Mm-hmm. And my DB coach, Coach Bradison, rest in peace, he was like, boy, if anybody asks you, you're 170 pounds. I said, all right. Because I was just small.
Hey, that was the weight online too.
Oh, yeah, it was. You're 175 pounds. I said, all right. But I knew that because I was small, I was going to have to make up for that in other areas. So where I made up for it was with my speed and my agility. Okay. So before I left, I was always doing ladder drills. I was always doing feet work because I wanted to have the best feet on the field. So I remember going into, we were in summer camp, training camp. And there was this guy by the name of Greg Estandia. Greg Estandia was probably like 6'7", 6'8". He ended up playing for the Panthers for a few times. And so they had put me out there at DB, and I was a corner. And I remember vividly in practice, man, he had ran this like little fade route. And I went up there and got it and knocked it down. And everybody was like, woo! Like, and I remember like I was making plays out there, but it was because I had good feet. I was able to stay with people. Mm-hmm. So I remember Coach Sanford walked up to me going into we were going into one of our team meetings, and he was like, hey, Ryan, like, what are you doing this weekend? Because they were getting ready we were going into the first game of the season against New Mexico, actually. And he was like, what are you doing this weekend? I said, well, shoot, nothing, just chilling. Because usually you stay back. You know, redshirt freshmen, we were all planning on redshirting. We stay back. You know, he was like, hey, we might be traveling you this weekend, first game of the season. Now, mind you, bro, I'm a freshman walk-on.
Oh, yeah.
So, I remember you. I was walking around, chest out. This dude, Jaja Riley, had transferred from Ohio State. It's crazy how you remember these things. Mm-hmm. But Jaja Riley had transferred from Ohio State, and you know he's sitting in the tape, and he's like sitting over, and you know as a young kid, he's like the man. Yeah. And you know we all taping. He was like, hey yo, Tillman, man, a good work out there. And I just remember feeling like,
oh yeah, that's respect.
Really respect. And so I ended up redshirting that year. They didn't travel me, but they ended up traveling me like 4 games into it. We traveled to TCU to get that experience. And that was another experience where I was just like, I love this, man. The police escorts to the game. Ooh. You're staying in 5-star hotels. VIP. I'm like, VIP. Man, like.
That's UNLV level right there. I mean, I went to Sac State. Our per diem was like $6, $7 for breakfast. It's like $10 for lunch.
Oh, man. I was like, y'all paying us to do this? I was like, what? I didn't even know y'all do. Yeah. Crazy experience.
That's dope. I know with playing a sport, it gives you a lot of tools that lead into your adulthood, mm-hmm. and how it builds a work ethic, you know, like no other. Mm-hmm. Because some people can't understand, you know, the grind of playing a sport and being able, like I said, to prioritize your time, and then also be able to adapt to adversity, mm-hmm. and challenges and all that. So how did you playing football at that level, especially, you know, D1, how did that transfer over into law enforcement?
Man, that's a great question. It revealed a lot about what I'm capable of doing.
Okay.
You know, being the walk-on, we had to do things that nobody else had to do. I remember my best friend Markel, bringing him back up again. I'll never forget, man. We were, you know, as scholarship athletes, you get training table, which means you get food after practice. But you had to be a scholarship guy. Again, talk about discrimination. So, like, I'm like, we all just practice the same. If I didn't work, if not harder.
That's cold.
Bro, so you don't get the training table as a walk-on. Like, you just don't. So when the whole team, all 85 other kids go to eat as a walk-on, like, you on your own.
You like Linus.
Dog, it's crazy. Looking back.
With the dirty.
Dog, looking back, I'm like, dog, that was real. So anyways, they all have training. And it wasn't just like they made you some bologna sandwiches. Like, they were eating good, like barbecue, like right after every practice. And so I remember one of the practices, one of the guys had came out with his whole food or whatever, and me and my boy Markel, we sitting out there, we're like, hey man, let us get one of those links you got or whatever. And so one of the guys had called my boy Markel, like, he was like, dog, what do you like, some mooch, like something like that? And my boy Markel was like, you ain't gonna disrespect me like that. So I never forget Markel, him ended up squaring off in the front, and like Markel, he had some like sliders on, some slides on. He was like, in sandals, dog, in sandals. Like he mopped them up. But it was just that chip that we had on our shoulder. Yeah. And so as I got older, you know, that transitioned into my professional life. That like I'm not gonna let anybody just tell me what they want to tell me. I'm not gonna like I'm so much more capable than you think I am, especially as a black man too. Like, people would always, think like, like you should be less in certain capacities of my life. That's what I felt like. So going into law enforcement, man, I had no aspirations of being a cop whatsoever. I actually went to college for marketing. I wanted to be a business owner. I had all these different business ideas that never panned out.
You got a journalism degree, correct?
I got a journalism degree. Yeah, I wanted to go into marketing and journalism. So when I moved back home, that was right around the time my dad was diagnosed with MS my senior year of college. So I moved back home to help my dad out. And then I had met my wife in my senior year in Vegas. Nice. And we met at Privé. Freeway was the spot back in the day, bro, at the Planet Hollywood. So I met my wife there, and she was front. My cousin went to school in Vegas with me, so she was out there visiting my cousin. So my cousin knew who she was, and that's how we met. But so after the season, my senior season was over, I moved back home. I was dating her. We ended up getting engaged, and so she was working full time for a grocery store chain, and I was working selling insurance through Primerica or whatever. So she ended up getting pregnant after we got married. She ended up getting pregnant, and I was like, I need to get a real job. And my dad's best friend was like, you should be a cop. I was like, man, I ain't about to be no pig. Like, I ain't about to work for the man. Like, I ain't about to be 5-0. I ain't about to do that. And so I started praying about it, and like I was like, God, if this is what you want me to do, open the door. If not, close the door. So I prayed, and man, the doors just flew off the hinges. And I was like, man, like I don't know if this is what I want to do. So I went to the academy. And I graduated number 2 overall in my class. It just came easy to me. It was weird. It just came natural to me. Amazing. And so I graduated.
This is a hard academy too.
It's stress, bro. They gas us, they tase us, they pepper spray. If you fail your third test, you're out of the academy. It's not, and then it's stress too. Yeah. Like they're yelling at you every day, telling you what you're not, all this other stuff. So, and mind you, my baby, my firstborn son, he was born the first week of the academy. So I had that stress on me as well. So finally I graduated. I was like, man, I don't know if this is what I want to do still. I feel like every time I pull people over, like I'm messing with them. And then finally when I got out of training, that's when the light bulb went off. And I discovered I can do policing the way I want to do it. Mm-hmm. And so all the lessons I learned being a sport and overcoming adversity, that all came to play right around the time I was a police officer, because that was when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson and the whole nation went up in flames. And I just remember the feeling, thinking like, man, like, I was like, I don't like the feeling that I have being a part of a system that black people don't like. Yeah. But then I also understand things differently now because I've been in some situations. And so that's where that walk-on mentality came out. I was like, man, like, you can do this, you can do it better. And I always had to be better than everybody else. And so I took the same mentality into law enforcement. I said, I'm going to be better than everybody else. Like, my goal, I don't want to just be in this profession to be in the profession. I want to go into the profession and change the game. I want to change the profession. Right. And that's kind of what birthed my business and, set me on the path that I'm on now.
That's dope. Excuse me. I have seen you grow from afar and seeing your work and how you go about doing your business in society and community. And you have touched so many people.
Appreciate that.
You have, locally, nationally, and globally, and your transparency, towards everyone, and especially African-American kids or people of color, especially young kids, and them dealing with law enforcement, because it's tough to kind of, you can't straddle the fence.
100%.
And it, us being African American and how we, have been oppressed, for so long, police brutality. How did you, when you first got on with the force and you started, because you were in patrol, how did you manage, like your friends or your family or people looking at you in a different manner?
Yeah, so when I got in, I got to start to understand the what, the why, and the how, why police officers do what they do. Before that, it was always just like either my own personal experiences that I had with law enforcement, which I had a lot of negative interactions with law enforcement, or it was what culturally we've always been conditioned to think about law enforcement. It's like, hey, they're oppressing, this is a systematic thing, blah, 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 blah. So when I got into law enforcement, I had to start making critical decisions. And I was put in situations where I had to use force, or I had to pull somebody over, they start cussing you out. when you're on the other end of it, it's like it changes.
Yeah.
And so the reality is like law enforcement is one of those things that is not going anywhere. Like it always amazes me, man. Like you have so many people that will talk about law enforcement, but the first time something goes south or they're in a situation that's going crazy, the first thing they do is, hey, I need y'all to get here as quick as you can. So we all know we need law enforcement. So I was like, you know what? Like I need to go out there and educate people. I think law enforcement has done themselves a disservice historically because we've never educated people about the what, the why, and the how.
Yeah.
We always go out there, we take names and numbers and we leave, and we just expect everybody else to just deal with it.
Right.
And so anytime we utilize force is never pretty. So when you just leave and don't explain what you did and why you did it, it's gonna leave the community feeling some type of way.
That's exactly why.
So I said, no, like we gotta change that. So I start educating people about the what, the why, and the how. But at the same time, I said, in order to get real transparency, I also have to call out negative police stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've been known for calling out bad police stuff. And initially it rubbed feathers wrong, especially in law enforcement. People are like, why are you doing that? Why are you Monday morning quarterback in and yada, yada, yada. But let me ask you, like, when you play basketball, the next day after the game, what were you guys doing?
Either
In the
going in the gym to go work on fine tuning something.
Yeah, fine tuning your skills. Did you guys watch film?
Yeah.
What was the purpose of watching film?
To break down, our deficiencies or,
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're going to the film to break down deficiencies and things like that. It's always been like that for football. Yeah. It's no different in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But the negative stigma is like, oh, you're Monday morning quarterbacking, you're not in that situation. But I'm like, look, like, there's a difference between me trying to throw you under the bus and talk about how garbage you are, and a difference for me saying, like, this is how you guys messed up and this is how things get done better. Yeah. So that's what I've always done is like, look, I'm just calling out certain situations where we can be better at. And if there's people that don't need to be in the profession, I'm going to call you out too because you're giving me a bad name. Right. So I think when I started doing that early on, man, people in law enforcement would hate on me big time.
I bet.
But over the years, because I was consistent and because I called it good on both ends. Like if I would take a controversial situation that looks bad and I'll be able to explain why I think it's justified. People start realizing like, oh man, like he actually is doing a good service for us. And I think I've started to develop a reputation now with law enforcement and with the community that, look, I may not agree with everything that he has to say. But I do trust him because I know he calls out the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. So I always tell people, look, like when you watch my videos, I don't expect you to agree with everything. Right. That we are all made differently. We're all created differently. But I do expect you to learn to think critically and learn how to deductive reason throughout situations and think for yourself. And so I think that's why I've been able to get to the place I'm at now because people will trust me because I'm willing to do the tough things. And again, that all goes back to the lessons I learned throughout sports. All those times, man, where I didn't want to finish the rep. All those times where I didn't want to finish the workout. All those times where I didn't want to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go do a workout. You start realizing like, man, no, you could do it. Even though you don't want to do it, you can do it. So I take the same lessons I learned then and I still apply it to my life now.
Because you basically going back to you being a walk-on with how you're policing. Yeah. Your way of policing and changing the demographic of police brutality and all that, but also calling a spade a spade. Yeah. So being transparent, because that's a very important word with being a police officer, because you've been in kids' shoes before. You know how it is. And with you starting, BBU and being an advocate for the community, how has that video you created with at Don Lugo High School, right?
The dancing video.
it went viral. It's got like 7 million views. He basically did a dance at a pep rally, and it went crazy. And he was doing his thing. He was gigging, How did that catapult you, with the kids?
Yeah. So what's funny is actually collectively, I've heard that it's over like 100 million views collectively with all the different reshares. It's been crazy. It's just 7 million on my channel or whatever it may be, but like other channels have reposted it. So collectively, you're over looking over 100 million, which is crazy. That year we did it actually, at the end of the year when you do the New Year stuff, they talk about some of the most viral moments throughout the year. That was actually one of the most viral moments.
Because that was like 4 years ago, right?
2019, 2019.
Right before COVID.
Yeah. So what's cool about that is so I was a school resource officer for about a year and a half, and I got promoted. It was one of the best assignments I ever had because I got to be a mentor to these kids. I got to interact with them on better levels. I was more proactive with them. And when I got promoted, it was a blessing and a curse. The blessing was I got promoted. The curse was I had to leave the school. So I was like, man, I want to do something that these kids will never forget. And they loved me. I had a good relationship. Like I showed up on campus, everybody, like we all had a great relationship.
You're like one of them, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other school resource officer before that, So when I got there, I was like, nah, I'm about to go ahead.
Change the game.
I'm about to change the game. Yeah. And so I did that. So I was like, well, I got to leave the same way. I'm going to leave with a bang. And so I was like, man, I'm going to do something that they'll never forget. So I got with the dance team because we had a dope dance team. And we choreographed this dance 2 weeks before a pep rally. And so I was like, I'm going to make the announcement at the pep rally that I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. And when I made that, everybody was like, what? Like, boo. Everybody was booing because they didn't want me to leave. I said, I'm going to give y'all something y'all never forget. So I did that dance, and I had my Billy come out and film it. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because, like, I didn't even so I couldn't wait to post it for people, but I had to get approval through my department. So I sent it to them first. And the next day, my mom was like, did you do some dance at a school yesterday? And I was like, how'd you know that? She was like, it was on the news this morning. I was like, on the news? Yeah. So my captain at the time, he's now the chief of police, he had posted it up on his Twitter. I was like, oh, so you just go post it first? But he had posted it up on Twitter, and it caught like fire. So what's cool about that, and I still have my haters. I had, officers like, oh, this is what we're doing now, dancing, blah, 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 blah. But again, I don't care what people think about me because I'm going to change the game. And if you look back, if you go to any one of those students at Don Lugo High School, they always will remember Officer Tillman. And it paid off because when I went back to the streets, man, I had relationships with grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, theos, you name it, because I had some interaction with their kids. I was even on a traffic stop, or we were on a stolen vehicle, guns out, everything. People was going crazy, like, oh, what are y'all doing? Y'all blah, 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 blah. Just antagonizing the whole situation. So as I'm out there with my gun out, somebody was like, is that Tillman? And I'm like, hey man, chill, like that. Yeah, I'm in the moment. They're like, hey. And they're like, hey, y'all don't even trip. Tillman's here, y'all. Don't even trip. Tillman's here. So like we pulled everybody out of the car and stuff like that. So then I was like, hey, just chill. I'll get over there when I get to. So we pulled everybody out the car. I went over to this lady. She's like, hey, y'all don't even trip. Like, we got Tillman out here. Like, I'm not even tripping. And she like even knew the dude that was driving the car that was stolen. And so like she was like, hey, y'all, could y'all actually like take a picture with me and Tillman real quick? Like, but I was like, that's an example of why the work, like I always say, you have to get to know the community before you have to know them. So I've developed such good relationships that I always say this, like, imagine I was ever seen in a controversial police video. Yeah. Because I've made so much positive deposits in the community, I'm more likely to have the community come to my back before they're going to come to the back of that person on the ground, because they're going to like, no, I know where his heart is at. Right. So that's what I sell to these police officers or these police departments. I'm like, look, this is why you need to invest into the community and the work, because there's going to be it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when that you get into some controversial situation that you're going to need the communities back.
Because there's so many bad apples that have created just a bad taste in communities' mouths over, the globe. And I know policing can be, demanding, and emotionally stressful. How do you tend to balance that out, with home and the kids and all that?
Yeah. Well, now my life is different. Now I speak for a living full time. I still technically part-time with Chino Police Department. But when I was full time, God was first. I put God first. Everything else just kind of fell into that. After that, he was number one. After that, it was having my priorities in order. So my wife and my kids, and then, just balancing, just making sure that like I'm walking in what I was called to do. And the stresses of it, man, like I love being able to educate people about what we do. I love the light bulb moments. I just made some controversial videos that actually came out from this way. We had a kid 2 weeks ago that police officer shot who was autistic and up in Apple Valley. Yeah. It's terrible. Nobody wins in that situation. But the way the narrative in the media was trending, it was like, oh, the officer shot this autistic kid who just had a gardening tool. But when you actually break it down and you see like the officer never even had a chance to like
saw that.
even interact with the kid. The kid was already running up on him with and it looked like he had an axe.
Yeah.
And the day before, I just watched a video out of New Mexico where an officer literally, it was the worst ever police video I've ever seen. And I've breaking down hundreds of videos, thousands of videos, and this was the worst video I ever seen where this officer literally got slashed through his neck, and he's bleeding out on camera. And he only had a split-second decision. So I compare the two, and I'm like, this is why officers make that decision. So it's great when I hear people hit me up and like, man, Ryan, like, I appreciate you breaking it down because I never even looked at it from that capacity. And so that's what I live for now.
Because I couldn't even imagine, being in your shoes, especially being African American, and how that stigma is just in that cloud, over you. But I applaud, again, you, and extremely proud because I did see that 2022, you did get a UPS game changer.
Oh, yeah. From my boy Dak, yeah.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Talk about working with him and his Faith
Fight Finish.
Faith Fight Finish Foundation. Talk about his impact on you and how you've impacted him as well.
Man, Dak he's become a really good friend of mine. We've been working together for like the last 3 or 4 years. He has a nonprofit, Faith Fight Finish, phenomenal organization, and he has a phenomenal heart. Like when George Floyd died, here we go. Here we go. Everything went crazy, as we know. My phone started ringing off the hook because people wanted answers. And so Dak, when that happened, he was like, man, I'm a pledge $1 million towards trying to improve the relationships between law enforcement and community. So he started this nonprofit to go not only to improve relationships between law enforcement and community, but he also wants to raise awareness for colon cancer awareness because his mom died from colon cancer. His older brother died by suicide. And so we got to meet, and he's a genuine guy. He got to realize that I'm a genuine dude. And so I've had the opportunity to oversee some of his programs for his nonprofit. And through the years, man, like I was a 49er fan growing up my whole life. And when I met Dak, oh man, hey, hold on, don't kick me off your podcast. So
now you a Cowboys fan?
I'm a Cowboys fan.
My
now.
wife, she a Cowboys
fan.
See,
look, I tell people, look. I say, hey, look, man, when the last time the 49ers actually paid my light bill? You know what I'm saying?
Never mind.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, beyond that, no, I really became a Cowboys fan, not because I work with Dak, but more so because I got to understand this man's heart on and off the field. Like, this dude is a genuine cat, and it's hard not to buy into somebody. So I root for the Cowboys because I'm rooting for my boy Dak. Now, if the Cowboys and the 49ers aren't playing each other, I'm rooting for the Niners all day long. Right. But if the Cowboys are playing the Niners, whatever it may be, I'm rooting for my boy Dak. He ended up getting the man of the year because not just his work on the field, but off the field. So phenomenal dude, man. I want to surround myself with people that want to make a true impact.
Dope. So lastly, we're about to close this episode with changing the face of modern day policing. What does that ultimately look like, and what are the long-term goals of BBU?
Man, that's a great question. So where that came from, changing the face of modern day policing, there was a guy by the name of Sir Robert Peel. Sir Robert Peel was known as the father of modern day policing, and this was like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Oh, wow. Yeah. And he had these 9 pillars of what policing should look like. One of those pillars was police of the community and the community of the police. And I've always loved that pillar because it's true. We're the police, or police of the community and community police. It's true. Right. But when I look and read through a lot of what he was saying, which was all great stuff, in my mind I'm like, if he was a father of modern day policing, and this is the late 1800s and 1900s, I was like, modern day policing needs a facelift.
Yeah, big time.
Because we've made some mistakes. You know what I mean? So for me, I was like, I want to become the face of modern day policing, or I want to change the face. Right. I want to change the face of modern day policing, of what that looks like. I go back to, let's talk about our community, the black community. There's a lot of black kids that will never grow up to aspire to be cops. A lot of black kids grow up, I want to be an athlete, I want to be a entertainer, a rapper, whatever it may be. And I was actually just listening to this on the Breakfast Club the other day. Candace Owens was actually talking about it. But I want kids to realize that athletics, there is an expiration date with the actual physical sport itself. Not to say there's an expiration sport of sports, because like you can go and get a job and work in the back office of the NFL, whatever it may be. So you don't have to end your life in athletics completely, but there's an expiration date of your time on the court, your time on the field. I mean, shoot, you wake up, if you like me, I wake up every day and something hurts. Something hurt. Right. But there's so much more out there than just athletics. Yeah. And so for me, I realized that law enforcement is a amazing profession for athletes because you're competing.
Right.
You compete every day.
Yeah.
You're thinking on the fly. You're thinking on the move. You have to think and act, react almost instantaneously. Mm-hmm. On the football field, when I was covering somebody, you had to move quickly. You're thinking basketball court, same thing. You're reacting. It's all reaction. Law enforcement's the same thing. I'm reacting based off of my situation and circumstances. I've realized that people that played sports thrive in law enforcement. So when I say I want to change the face of modern day policing, I don't want to just change the policy and practices of how we do it, but I want the kid that is at home right now that has no aspirations of being a cop, I want him to wake up one day and be like, man, I want to go out there and be a dope cop like Tillman.
Dope, man. I'm in awe of you speaking because like I said, we haven't even seen each other since we were kids.
Well, I saw you at the airport. But after that,
you know, and just to hear you speak and how well you speak and what you represent, and your dad, you know, he's definitely, you know, proud of you.
I appreciate
up
that.
in heaven, and your mom.
Say your mom too, bro. Your mom too, bro.
And my mom is the one that, you know, inspired me to do this.
Wow.
And I know with you and your impact on the community and what you're striving to be and what you're going to be doing, good luck to you. I appreciate you being here.
Man, so I appreciate you.
If you want to check out any of Ryan Tillman, Corporal Ryan Tillman's info, you need go any workshops, some mentorship, coach, go check out breakingbarriersunited.com. Definitely want to thank him again for coming through and blessing us with his presence. Again, like, subscribe, comment. If you're hating, even better. We appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. Again, my name is Joseph Dawson, Open Gym Live, powered by Get Better Hoops. We'll see y'all later.
Love y'all. Appreciate it.